He thought clarity would free him, but clarity only stripped away the last shelter of illusion. Now he walks through life as one who has awakened in a dream that refuses to end. The world continues bright, loud, insistent, but behind its color he hears the low hum of futility. He has seen the machinery, he knows the will, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. This is where the descent truly begins. He wakes before dawn, though he has not slept. The room is still, but his mind moves like a restless tide. Every object around him, the desk, the lamp, the watch, feels estranged, drained of purpose. He stares at the clock ticking toward nothing, each second a reminder that time continues, even when meaning does not. He once believed despair was chaos, a storm of emotion, a collapse of faith, but the real despair is quieter. It arrives not as thunder, but as fog. It seeps into every thought until even breathing feels redundant. This is not pain. It is vacancy, the exhaustion of having understood too much. I know this place. It is the valley one reaches after climbing through illusion and finding no summit, only sky. The will, having lost its disguises, stands revealed, vast, indifferent, eternal. It neither hates nor forgives. It simply continues. And to the one who sees it, the world suddenly appears like a puppet show performed for no audience. He rises, dresses mechanically, and steps outside. The morning light is pale, almost sterile. The city stirs awake, people rushing toward their duties, as if meaning could be manufactured before breakfast. He watches them with neither scorn nor envy. They are still protected by illusion. He is not. He walks among them, unseen, carrying his silence like a secret wound. A man hands him a flyer for a new self-improvement seminar. The words promise, transformation, fulfillment, purpose. He almost laughs. The will now sells salvation by the hour. I remember the same laughter rising in me when I first recognized the futility of all cures. You can polish the mirror endlessly. It will still only reflect the face of desire. Every therapy, every philosophy, every success story, all attempt to make the will comfortable in its cage. But the cage remains, and the prisoner is eternal. He turns down a narrow street where the buildings lean inward like tired witnesses. Rain begins to fall, soft and indifferent. He does not hurry. Each drop on his skin feels like the world whispering the same sentence. Nothing changes. The recognition is not tragic. It is oddly pure. For the first time, there is no pretense of progress. Only the simple fact of existence, raw, unresolved, unavoidable. Despair is clarity without anesthesia. It is the moment the mind ceases to beg the universe for meaning and begins to see the emptiness as truth itself. Most flee from it, inventing new distractions, new gods, new ambitions. But if you can endure it, if you can stand still within that void, something remarkable happens. The scream becomes silence, and silence begins to glow. He spends the day in motion, though nothing is done. He eats without tasting, speaks without hearing. Friends invite him out, concerned by his quietness. They say he seems distant, absent. They do not know he has simply stepped outside the play. He watches their conversations from a space behind the words, noticing how every sentence circles around desire, plans, fears, dreams, comparisons. The endless hum of the will disguised as ordinary life. I remember when I too tried to return to the play to act as though I believed in the script again. But the lines felt hollow. Even laughter tasted artificial. Once you've glimpsed the machinery backstage, you cannot pretend the drama is spontaneous. You may reach this point someday when every goal feels absurd, every victory ornamental, every comfort transient. You will try to reignite the old hunger, to forget what you've seen. But the fire will not catch. That is the sign you have crossed the threshold. Despair has become your teacher. He sits on a park bench as evening falls. Children play in the distance, their shouts slicing through the fading light. For a moment, he envies them their unbroken faith in the game. Then he wonders if ignorance is the truest mercy life affords. But even that thought dissolves. The mind no longer clings to conclusions. The will still moves him. He breathes. He blinks. His heart keeps its rhythm. But it feels like inertia rather than intention. He has become an instrument without melody. And yet, beneath that numbness, something faint begins to stir. Not hope, but awareness. A stillness so complete it almost resembles peace. I have called this state despair, but perhaps it is purification. When every illusion dies, only consciousness remains. It observes without wanting, suffers without resistance. This is what mystics call detachment, though the word is too mild for the experience. It is not achieved, it is revealed when all else fails. He notices the wind moving through the trees, a motion without purpose, without ambition. For the first time, he understands nature's secret. It does not strive to be more than it is. It simply is. The human tragedy is to have been cursed with self-awareness, to see the flow and want to direct it. He whispers to himself, almost a prayer, if only I could be like the wind moving, but untroubled by destination. The thought carries a quiet release. Not joy, but acceptance. Despair, when endured fully, empties the mind of arrogance. You no longer demand that life explain itself. You stop asking why, because you see that why is the invention of the will, a trick to keep you reaching. Without it, existence becomes neither cruel nor kind. It simply unfolds like weather. He returns home after midnight. The city sleeps. He sits by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass in slow, luminous trails. Each drop descends, merges, disappears. In that movement, he sees himself one brief condensation of the infinite, forming, falling, dissolving, new tragedy, new triumph. Just return. I used to think enlightenment meant bliss. Now I see it is simply the absence of delusion. Bliss is still movement, truth is stillness, and stillness feels, at first, like death. You may resist this understanding, your instincts will call it nihilism, but nihilism is only despair misunderstood. When you stop mistaking absence for loss, you realize the void does not take anything from you. It removes only the false. He lies down, eyes open in the dark. The city's hum fades until it becomes indistinguishable from the sound of his breath. He senses the will still there, but distant, subdued, almost tender. He does not fight it anymore. He lets it move through him like a tide. Outside, the first light of dawn seeps into the sky, pale, indifferent, eternal. He feels no joy, no sorrow, only the quiet understanding that the pendulum continues, with or without his consent. And yet, within that inevitability, a paradox. When he no longer seeks to escape the cycle, he stands slightly outside of it. Awareness does not stop the swing, but it no longer swings him. That is the faint beginning of freedom. Freedom not from the will, but from the illusion of being its prisoner. I will not pretend this is a happy ending. It is not an ending at all, only a state of rest between movements. The will sleeps for now, gathering strength for its next awakening. But in the meantime, awareness watches, serene, unhurried. You will experience this too, if you persist in seeing clearly. There will come a night when all your meanings fall apart, and you will feel the quiet terror of having nothing left to chase. Do not flee from it. Sit in it. That silence is the first honest sound you have ever heard. He closes his eyes. The darkness inside them feels infinite, but not hostile. In it, there is space wide enough for peace to hide. He does not reach for it. He only rests. Outside, somewhere far below, the city begins to wake again. Engines roar, lights flicker, the machinery restarts. He listens to it, as one listens to distant thunder, aware, but unmoved. For the first time, he smiles. Not with triumph, but with understanding. The dream has turned against itself, and in its collapse, he has found the still center where nothing needs to be won. He wakes to light spilling across the room. The air is motionless, clear. For a moment, he does not remember where he is, who he is, or why the day exists, and in that brief absence, there is peace. Then the mind returns, and with it, the machinery of thought. But something inside remains still. The storm has burned itself out. He steps outside, and the world greets him with its ordinary rhythm, footsteps, engines, laughter, wind. Nothing has changed, yet everything feels new. The colors are quieter, the face is softer. He notices the pattern of leaves trembling against sunlight, not as beauty, not as metaphor, simply as being. The will still moves, but its voice has grown distant. Desire rises and falls like small waves on a vast sea, seen, felt, but no longer believed. He walks through the same streets that once filled him with hunger and envy, but now he watches them as one might watch actors performing roles they do not know they play. I remember the first time I felt this lightness, the sensation of living without needing the world to justify itself. It was not joy. Joy is still a flame. It was the cooling of the fire, the cessation of urgency. When illusion dies, the soul stops sprinting toward what it already is. You may imagine such freedom as dullness, but it is not. It is clarity. It is the slow realization that peace was never hidden in achievement, nor stolen by failure, but obscured by wanting. When wanting falls silent, the world reveals its quiet perfection, not because it is kind, but because it no longer pretends to be otherwise. He sits in a small cafe by the window. People move outside like a slow procession of stories, each face carrying its own secret longing. He watches them with tenderness, not judgment. He knows they are not wrong to chase. The chase is life's rhythm. But he also knows that beyond every chase waits the same silence he has already met. He drinks his coffee in peace, not because the coffee is special, but because he no longer needs it to be. I once called this awareness detachment, but that word feels too sterile. It is not withdrawal, not indifference. It is intimacy without possession, to be fully present in the world while knowing it cannot belong to you. You touch everything lightly, and in that lightness, everything touches you more deeply. He walks by the river again. The water glints under a gray sky. A leaf falls, swirls, vanishes. He feels himself as that leaf carried by currents he no longer fights. He does not call it fate. He does not call it freedom. He simply moves. In the past, he would have tried to name this feeling enlightenment, awakening, peace. But naming is grasping, and grasping reawakens the will. So he remains silent, letting the experience flow through him like wind through open hands. I have learned that true peace cannot be possessed. It visits, like weather, a calm day between storms. If you try to hold it, it breaks. If you let it pass, it returns of its own accord. Freedom is not mastery, but trust in impermanence. You may think this acceptance means apathy, but that is another misunderstanding of the will. The awakened do not cease to act. They cease to cling. They work, love, create, walk, but without the fever of becoming. They no longer say, I must win, only I must move. He finds himself smiling at a stranger for no reason. The stranger smiles back. Nothing profound passes between them, yet something invisible changes a small proof that kindness does not require belief, only presence. In that exchange, he feels the faint hum of connection, not the burning need of the past, but a simple recognition we are all caught in the same tide. I often think compassion is the final form of wisdom. When you see through illusion, cruelty becomes impossible. To harm another would be to harm yourself, for the same will animates both. You pity not from superiority, but from understanding. You see the beggar and the king as twin expressions of the same blind hunger, and you forgive them both. He visits his old office. The building hums with ambition, voices sharp, screens glowing, eyes fixed on invisible summits. He greets his former colleagues. They ask what he's been doing, what he plans next. He tells them he doesn't know. They laugh, unsure if it's a joke. He laughs too, because he knows how absurd his peace must sound to those still climbing. As he leaves, he feels no nostalgia, no loss. He has not abandoned the world. He has simply stopped asking it to save him. It will continue to do what it does: strive, compete, exhaust, repeat, and he will continue to walk through it quietly, lucidly. I used to think enlightenment was escape. Now I see it as participation without delusion. To act without illusion is the highest form of truth. It does not make you better than the world. It makes you whole within it. You may ask, what remains once illusion is gone? What remains is what has always been the raw fabric of existence. It is not grand, but it is enough. Air, light, movement, silence. It does not promise happiness, but it no longer deceives you with its absence. And in that honesty, there is a strange comfort. He sits on a bench at dusk, the sky a slow-burning gradient of gray and gold. The day ends without drama, without promise of renewal. Yet he feels complete. There is no story to continue, no lesson to extract. Only the simple grace of being allowed to exist, to breathe, to fade gently into evening. I will tell you something few will believe. There is beauty in futility. Because when nothing needs to mean more than it does, everything becomes pure. The stone, the leaf, the breath, each perfect in its uselessness. The will once called this emptiness. Now I call it stillness. He thinks of his past self, the man who conquered, who suffered, who sought meaning in every shadow. He does not pity him. He thanks him. Without that struggle, he could not have reached this silence. The path of futility is still a path, and even illusions serve their purpose. They exhaust us into awakening. You who listen now understand this. You will not be freed by success, nor by wisdom, nor even by despair. You will be freed when you finally tire of needing freedom, when you no longer demand that life feel different than it does. That is when peace slips in, quietly, like a guest who was waiting at your door all along. He stands, watching the last light fade over the city. In the distance, lights flicker on the same machinery, the same pendulum, the same eternal motion. He feels no urge to condemn it, no urge to praise it. The world continues, and so does he. But now, his steps make no noise in the soul. I have walked the same road to its end, and there was no revelation waiting there, only space, infinite and still. And in that stillness, the discovery that nothing needed to be revealed at all. The truth was always the silence beneath the noise, the presence beneath the will. You will hear this and forget it. Then you will remember it again when life exhausts you once more. Do not worry. The will's repetitions are the rhythm of awakening. Each swing of the pendulum brings you closer to stillness, even as it continues to move. He turns away from the fading skyline and walks home. No destination, no meaning, just steps, breath, motion, and in that motion he feels lighter than ever before. Not because he carries less, but because he has stopped mistaking his burdens for himself. At his door, he pauses, listening. The world hums the same hum as always. But now, it sounds like music, not the kind that excites, but the kind that accompanies a steady, indifferent rhythm, neither sad nor joyous. He opens the door, walks inside, and lets the darkness close behind him. I will leave you with this. Peace does not arrive, it remains. It was there before your striving began, and it will be there after it ends. You cannot earn it, you can only notice it. And once you do, you realize the trap was never the will itself. It was believing that you were its prisoner. He lies down, eyes half open to the dark. The pendulum still swings somewhere beyond thought, but he no longer feels its pull. The body breathes, the heart beats, the world turns. Everything continues exactly as before. Only the watcher has changed. And in that quiet change, invisible, uncelebrated, eternal, he finally understands what freedom means. Not victory, not escape, just stillness that asks for nothing. Night folds itself around the city like a calm, endless sea. The streets are still, the air heavy with the scent of rain and iron. In the distance, faint sirens murmur the world breathing through its sleep. He sits by the window, unlit, unguarded. His face, half in shadow, half in light, carries the look of one who no longer expects anything from the world. The silence is not empty now. It has texture, a quiet pulse that feels alive. It no longer threatens him, it comforts him. Once silence felt like options. Now it feels like truth. He watches the reflections on the glass lights, moving like memories across his skin. They come and go, bright and brief, like every joy he ever chased. He lets them pass. There is no resistance left in him. I have called this moment sobriety because it arrives after every intoxication has burned away. Desire, hope, despair, all reduced to ashes. What remains is clear awareness, simple, austere, awake. This is not happiness. Happiness is a fever. This is the temperature of truth, cool, steady, mercifully real. You spend half a life chasing the heat of meaning. Then, one day, the fever breaks, and you realize the cure was not in the fire, but in its extinction. The end of intoxication is not emptiness, it is relief. He remembers his victories as one remembers dreams detailed, yet distant. He sees his past self climbing, shouting, begging the heavens for a sign. He feels no pity, no pride, only understanding. That desperate figure was necessary. Without the madness of pursuit, the mind would never collapse into clarity. He opens the window. The night air enters cold, transparent. Far below, the river moves without sound, a ribbon of faint silver threading through the dark. He watches it for a long time. Each ripple dissolves into another. No form survives its own motion. And yet, the flow endures. That, he realizes, is what life is. Continuity without identity. Forms rise and vanish, but the current remains. Peace is not to stop the current, but to stop mistaking yourself for the waves. I used to believe transcendence meant rising above the world. Now I know it means sinking so deeply into it that there is no longer a you to rise. When self dissolves, only being remains the quiet hum that never began and will never end. He leans back, eyes half closed. The city hums below like a distant hive. He feels himself dissolve into that sound not as surrender but as return. The boundary between observer and observed melts. He is not watching life, he is life watching itself. You will one day taste this moment, perhaps in exhaustion, perhaps in grace. It will come when striving has worn you down to stillness. You will look around and realize nothing needs to change for you to rest. And then, without fanfare, peace will enter like breath through an open door. Do not call it enlightenment, do not call it salvation. Those are the names desire gives to its final disguises. Just call it clarity, the state in which nothing is missing because nothing was ever owed. He closes his eyes. Inside, darkness glows faintly, the soft light of awareness detached from form. He hears his own heartbeat, as if from far away, a slow drum marking time that no longer matters. Each beat says the same word, enough. I have lived long enough to know that the world does not grant closure. Every ending bleeds into another beginning. Every piece is temporary. But awareness, the watcher behind all endings, that alone remains untouched. To rest in that is to be finished with becoming. He dreams, though not of visions or stories. He dreams of still water, endless and unmoving. When he wakes, he cannot tell if he has slept or simply dissolved into silence. The line between waking and dream no longer exists. He stands, walks to the mirror, and looks into it one last time. The face that looks back is neither stranger nor friend. It is simply a shape light happens to make for a while. He smiles, not the smile of joy, but of recognition. He touches the glass. For the first time, the reflection does not feel separate. I will tell you something the ancients knew but forgot to teach. Transcendence is not climbing beyond the world. It is seeing that there was never anywhere else to go. When illusion falls away, the infinite was here all along, hidden in the ordinary, humming beneath the noise. He walks to the door and steps outside. Dawn is beginning that thin line of light, dividing night from day. Birdsong filters through the air, tentative and clear. Each note feels sacred, not because it means anything, but because it asks for nothing. He breathes in. The air is cold and new. He breathes out. Nothing resists. This, he thinks, is what freedom feels like. Not the freedom to have, but the freedom from needing to have. The philosopher in me wants to call this resignation, but the heart knows better. It is gratitude without object. It is the silent thank you whispered to existence for nothing in particular. You who listen, remember this. Peace will not come as victory. It will come as surrender, not to failure, but to reality. The will still move, the world will still burn, but you will no longer mistake the motion for yourself. He stands there as the sun rises fully, washing the city in gold. People emerge from their doors. The day begins its familiar noise. But beneath the noise, he hears the deeper rhythm, the one that has no beginning, no end. He closes his eyes and lets it pass through him. For a brief instant, there is nothing left to seek, nothing left to fear, only the quiet fact of being. And that, he realizes, was what he was chasing all along. We were never meant to conquer the world, only to wake from it